In this intermediate Python tutorial video, we will be talking about two helpful functions in Python, any and all. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Both any and all are built-in functions in Python that take iterables as arguments, so lists, tuples, sets, and so on. Let's first take a look at the any function. This function will return true or false. It will return true if there are any truthy values in the input. So as long as there is a single truthy value in the input list, tuple, or set, then it will return true and it will return false otherwise. And by truthy, what I'm talking about here is the Boolean evaluation of a value. So if I convert a value, let's say 0, into a Boolean, we will see we get false because 0 in Python is a falsy value. Whereas if I change this to be 1, we will see our output becomes true. And the same thing with, let's take a look at an empty string. This is a falsy value, so we get false. If I change this string to be non-empty, like any value in here, we will see true printed out. Here we have 4 lines of example code using the any function. We can see that any 001 will give us true because there is at least one value in here that is truthy, whereas this tuple contains all falsy values, and the same thing with this set here. So we have false for both of these outputs. Lastly, we have a list, and there is one non-empty string, which means that there is at least one value here that evaluates to true in a Boolean context, so we have true as the final output. We can also add on to the power of the any function in ways like using list comprehension. If we want to check whether there is any even number in this list of numbers, we can use list comprehension to do that. If we don't care about how many even numbers or which are the even numbers, then we can do this in the following way. So we have this list of numbers here, and then we can use list comprehension to create a new list filled with Boolean values. This expression right here will evaluate to true if n is even, and this will evaluate to false if n is odd. So we will essentially create a list of trues and false, which we will pass into the any function. So if there is any true in this list, we will see true here. If there is no true value in here, then we will see false printed out. And we can see here we have false, 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 true, because only the last value, 8 here, is an even number. So finally, we have the output of true. If I change this 8 to be 7, we will see false, 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 and lastly, we have false, because there is not a single even number in this list of numbers. Here, we can use the any function to combine conditions with or in, let's say, an if statement. So if I want to check if any of these values, any of these conditions in this list, if any of these is true, we will print out yes, otherwise we will print out no. So instead of writing x modulus 2 is equal to 0, or x is greater than 0, or x is less than negative 102, we can put this in a list. And this will evaluate to, in this case, it will evaluate to false, and then this will evaluate to be true, and this will evaluate to be false. But as long as there is a single value here that evaluates to true, we will see the output yes. So in this case, we have yes. If I change this to be, let's say, -1, we'll see no printed out because none of these values will return true. Now let's talk about the all function. This function will return true or false once again. It will return true if all of the values are truthy, and it will return false if, as long as one of those values is falsy, it will return false. So it requires all of the values in the input iterable to be true or truthy. So all 001 will give us false because there are 2 falsy values here. So we have false. But 111, all of these are true values, so we have true, and then this will return true, and this will give us false. Here, we have a similar idea if we want to check if all of the values in a list, all of these numbers are even. Then what we can do is, once again, we create a list filled with true or false values, and then we pass that into the all function. And if all of these values are true, or sorry, if all of these values are even, then all of these values will be true, so this will give us true. If there is a single odd number here, there will be at least one false in this list, so we will have false as the final output. So we have true, 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 and lastly we have true. If I change this to say 1, we will see false. And then we can also use the all function to combine conditions with the AND operator essentially. So if I want to check if this is true, this is also true, and this is also true, then I can combine this by putting those in a list and then pass that into the all function. We'll print out yes if all of these conditions evaluate to true, otherwise we will print out no. So we have no here. To summarize, the any and all functions are two very nifty functions in Python that can be used in many different situations. That's it for this video. If you would like to learn more about Python and programming in general, please consider subscribing down below. With that said, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in more videos.